What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I try and help you guys keep on top of the macro developments coming out of China. For those of you watching for the first time, if that is something you might be interested in, and if you want to be just as informed as my clients, maybe consider subscribing. Everyone else, it's good to see you guys. Hope you're doing well. Look, I have a bit of a business trip over the weekend. I have to leave, and so I've put this together tonight. It's shorter than the original version that I wanted to film, but I didn't have enough time to write it all out. So hopefully this will do. I've hit on some of the main what I believe to be more important developments of the week, so hopefully you guys enjoy it nonetheless. I think we should just jump in. As always, if you do enjoy the episode, it is a huge help if you hit that like button, and a huge thank you to those of you who are supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting a new YouTube channel. Okay, let's jump in. First up, Meituan is one of the world's largest online on-demand delivery platforms, with over 350 million monthly active users and 650 million registered users in total, and it is one of China's biggest technology companies. Meituan is now in trouble with regulators, with an official investigation underway. Commentators domestically and internationally believe that Meituan is likely facing a fine of billions of RMB as a result of this antitrust probe, just like what happened with Jack Ma's Alibaba recently. Public sentiment is also increasingly negative towards the technology company. This response coming after a viral video showing a field investigation by Wang Lin, a deputy director at the Beijing Bureau of Human Resources and Social Security, who went undercover to work as a Meituan delivery driver for a day. During his 12-hour shift, he completed 5 orders, earning only 41 RMB, or approximately $6.32. This week too, it is being reported that Beijing is preparing a substantial fine for Tencent Holdings, another tech giant which owns the very popular app WeChat here in China. The fine will likely be around 10 billion RMB, or approximately $1.5 billion US. Back in February, well-known food delivery worker activist going by the pseudonym Meng Zhu was detained by Beijing police with 4 others. He has been charged with, quote, picking quarrels and provoking trouble, end quote. This is the typical charge that's used when so-called troublemakers are detained. He has been publishing short videos about delivery driver their daily work experiences, and calling for better labor conditions for delivery drivers. Now, these developments touch on 2 key current political themes for those watching China. The first is Beijing's crackdown generally on massive technology companies, and this is likely has 2 reasons. One, to assert government authority generally over private equity, and the second, to reduce financial systemic risk generally as well. The second key theme that these developments touch on is increased concern about potential labor movements or labor agitation within the growing male-dominated informal services sector of the economy, which has seen stagnant wages and poor working conditions for several years now. During his inspection tour in Guangxi, General Secretary Xi Jinping this week called for, quote, the protection of the legitimate interests of truck drivers, couriers, and food delivery riders, end quote. The statement from Xi Jinping, the first of its kind, is very telling. Now, while we're on General Secretary Xi Jinping, that moves us to the next story. This week, the General Secretary attended the commissioning ceremony of 3 naval vessels at once into the People's Liberation Army Navy, a first in Chinese history. Chinese military experts claim that the vessels included the latest type of strategic nuclear submarine, the first Type 075 amphibious assault ship, and a Type 055 large destroyer. This week there has been a lot of attention globally and domestically on a Financial Times article which reported that the latest People's Republic of China census, which was completed in December of last year but is yet to be made public, is expected to report that the total population of China is already in decline. If the report is accurate, it would mean that those who have argued that birth rates have been overestimated for years are correct, and that the demographic challenges facing China are accelerating at a much faster pace than previously assumed. Now, you guys may remember that we discussed the People's Bank of China, the Central Bank of China, publishing a working paper a few weeks ago. We touched on it on the show. The paper was called Understanding and Countermeasures of Our Country's Demographic Transition. That was the name of the paper. At the time, we said that the paper, the working paper, the research paper, didn't read like a cautious, dry and technical paper, which the central bank normally publishes, what we've seen coming from the central bank in previous years, but rather it reads like a frank opinion piece warning that China's demographic challenges are coming and China needs to act now. For example, it argued, quote, "It is almost a fact that China has overestimated its birth rate. The challenge brought about by China's demographic shift could be bigger than expected," end quote. There was so much attention on this Financial Times article that the National Bureau of Statistics made the unusual move of releasing a statement on Thursday, pushing back somewhat on the claims made in the report. It claimed that China's population continued to grow in 2020 and that specific data would be released soon. Chinese state media also pushed back. Quote, "Several Chinese demographers reached by the Global Times on Thursday clarified that the Statistics Bureau's data is credible and it is unlikely to show a decline in population in 2020, given that the number of new babies is still higher than the number of deaths. But they predicted that China's population is about to start falling in the next year or two." End quote. 2022 or 2023 would still represent a date much earlier than previously expected. Hopefully we will have some official data at least and expect reactions and analysis in the next week or so. And now for the quote of the week. Quote, "The road of socialism with Chinese characteristics has become wider and wider, which has increased the number of people in the world who face up to and believe in Marxism and socialism, and made the historical evolution and contest of the two ideologies and two social systems in the world undergo profound changes in favor of Marxism and socialism." End quote. This week, the United States State Department expressed in a statement that experts from several federal departments in the United States are developing recommendations to be submitted to the World Health Organization for its upcoming second phase of the inquiry into how the new coronavirus started spreading. That is the origin question. It is being reported that the US is expected to push back on a hypothesis promoted by China that the virus could have spread via frozen food products. At least two US media outlets are reporting on a US official who said that, quote, "Government experts believe it would take a whistleblower at this point, nearly a year and a half after the outbreak began, to produce evidence on a lab accident, end quote. And as such, the US, quote, "currently doesn't intend to press for that," end quote. The People's Republic of China response to these reports, quote, "The US planned recommendations to the WHO urging more testing and pushing back on the idea of cold chain could spread coronavirus are a political farce whose purpose is nothing more than to smear and suppress China," the Chinese Foreign Ministry said on Wednesday, end quote. At the same meeting, People's Republic of China Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian once again suggested that COVID may have leaked from a US-based laboratory and that there should be an international investigation into it. And finally, on Thursday, China successfully launched the first module of its planned space station from a launch site in the southern island of Hainan. To date, the largest spacecraft ever developed by China, the core module with a living space of 50 cubic meters, was launched into low Earth orbit by the Long March 5B rocket. China plans to build its own space station, about 1/5 the size of the International Space Station, by the end of 2020. And it will probably very much achieve that. Okay guys, I know I was a little bit shorter than usual, but I hope you enjoyed the content nonetheless. Thank you for watching. It's good to see you guys as always. Wherever you are, stay safe, stay sane. I will see you guys next time on China Update.